It was a quiet afternoon, one of those where the hours seemed to drag on. I was in the kitchen preparing coffee when I accidentally spilled the hot drink on my blouse. Irritated, I left the mess aside and went upstairs to my room to change. I thought I was alone in the house, so I didn't bother closing the door while I searched for a clean blouse in the closet. I felt a presence and turned around slowly. There he was, Sebastian, standing in the doorway. His gaze was different from usual. There was something in his eyes that disarmed me completely. His face showed no surprise or discomfort, but an intensity that left me speechless. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. The silence in that moment was so heavy it was almost palpable. My hands trembled as I tried to cover myself, but my mind went blank. Although he quickly looked away, that instant was etched in my memory. It was as if something had changed forever, as if a spark that should never have been ignited began to burn. Days later, I tried to act as if nothing had happened. I pretended that the awkward moment was just a misunderstanding, something I could forget. But the tension between us grew with each passing day. The glances lasted longer than usual, the silences felt heavier, and every time we were close, my heart raced faster. One evening, Daniel went on a business trip, leaving Sebastian and me alone in the house. The silence was unsettling, so we decided to watch a movie in the living room. We tried to act normal, but the discomfort in the air was palpable. At one point, our hands met as we both reached for the remote control. It was an accidental touch, but neither of us pulled away. His hand lingered on mine for a few seconds longer than necessary, and I felt my breath quicken. I looked at him, and his eyes were filled with a mix of desire, vulnerability, and something more that I couldn't decipher. "I can't pretend anymore, Maria," he whispered, breaking the silence. "I know it's wrong, but I can't stop thinking about you." My mind screamed at me to get up, to move away from him, but my body didn't respond. His lips moved closer, brushing against mine in a kiss that started tentatively, almost like a question, but the intensity that followed was something I couldn't ignore. The sound of a message on my phone abruptly separated us. It was Daniel, sending me a photo of the dinner he was having at his hotel. I felt trapped between two worlds, the marriage I was supposed to protect and the desire that was beginning to consume us. After that kiss, I swore it wouldn't happen again. I tried to keep my distance from Sebastian, avoiding him as much as I could, but every time we were near each other, the tension was unbearable. One afternoon, while I was folding laundry in my room, Sebastian appeared in the doorway. His presence filled the space immediately, and I felt my heart begin to race. "I need to talk to you," he said, closing the door behind him. His tone was decisive, but his eyes held a mix of vulnerability and desperation. "I can't keep ignoring this. I love you, Maria. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it." I wanted to stop him, but his words broke down my last defenses. Before I could respond, he took my face in his hands and kissed me with a passion that overflowed everything we had been holding back. Clothes began to fall to the floor, piece by piece, as our emotions consumed us completely. His skin against mine, his caresses, his voice murmuring my name, it was all so intense, so forbidden, yet so right. Just as it seemed we had crossed the point of no return, a noise from downstairs startled us. The front door opened abruptly. Daniel had returned earlier than expected. We hurriedly gathered our things and tried to compose ourselves before he came upstairs. It was a moment of pure panic, and although Daniel didn't suspect anything at that instant, the danger had left its mark. The fear I felt that afternoon when Daniel returned unexpectedly became a constant reminder that what was happening was dangerous, but not enough to stop us. Despite everything, I couldn't ignore what Sebastian awakened in me. Every time we were close, my body reacted in ways I couldn't control, and it became increasingly difficult to resist. One evening, Daniel was working in his home office, locked away as he usually did when reviewing important contracts. I was in the kitchen washing the dishes, trying to keep my mind occupied, when I felt Sebastian's presence behind me. "You know this is crazy, right?" I whispered without turning around, but I could feel his body dangerously close to mine. I can't help it, he said softly, his hand brushing against my waist. Just a touch, but enough to make me tremble. I turned slowly, meeting his eyes, those eyes that spoke of desire and regret at the same time. I wanted to move away, to tell him we couldn't keep doing this, but when his lips met mine, all my determination crumbled. The sound of a creak on the stairs made us jump. Daniel was coming up. Sebastian quickly moved away, straightening his clothes, and slipped out the back door of the kitchen while I tried to compose myself. When Daniel entered, I noticed how he looked at me, as if something in my expression or gestures had alerted him. His tone was neutral, but there was a coldness behind his words. "Everything okay here?" he asked, glancing at the back door that was still slightly ajar. I nodded quickly, trying not to give myself away, but I knew something inside him had begun to suspect. From that day on, I noticed that Daniel was more attentive, more observant. It was as if an internal alarm had been activated in him. His glances lasted longer, his questions became more insistent, and he began to appear in places where he hadn't before, as if he was looking for something. One night, during dinner, Daniel paused mid-bite and looked at me intently. "Maria, is there something I should know?" he asked, his voice calm but with an edge that made me shiver. I denied it quickly, but I could tell my response didn't convince him. After dinner, I locked myself in my room, thinking about how this situation was becoming unsustainable. However, that very night, Sebastian appeared at my door. He didn't say anything, just looked at me, and before I could stop him, he took my hand and led me to the guest room. In the guest room, everything felt different. There was a mix of urgency and desperation that filled the air. Sebastian closed the door carefully, his movements quick but silent, as if we both knew we were on the edge of the abyss. "We can't keep doing this," I whispered, but my voice lacked conviction. Sebastian didn't respond. Instead, his hands found mine and then his gaze met mine. His expression was filled with emotions, a mix of desire and pain that made me feel more alive and more guilty at the same time. "I don't want to lose you," he said, his voice low, almost broken. I didn't respond. I had no words for what was happening, but I also couldn't resist it. His lips found mine, and this time, there were no interruptions, no noises to stop us. Every touch, every caress was like a fire that consumed all reason. Clothes disappeared quickly, and whispers filled the space between us. It was a moment of complete surrender where the outside world ceased to exist. But at the same time, I knew this couldn't last. What I didn't know was that on that night, Daniel had checked my phone while I was sleeping. He found messages from Sebastian, confessions that left no room for doubt. The next morning, I woke up to Daniel's firm and angry voice. "What is this, Maria?" he demanded, throwing the phone onto the bed. His face was red, his eyes filled with fury and pain. I tried to explain, but there were no excuses that could justify what I had done. Sebastian, hearing the shouting, appeared in the room. "This isn't her fault," he said, his voice trembling but decisive. "I love her, Daniel." Daniel looked at him in disbelief, as if he couldn't process what he had just heard. Finally, he turned to me, his gaze filled with contempt. "You're both dead to me," he said before storming out of the room and slamming the door. After that night, everything fell apart. Sebastian left the house, unable to face what we had done. Daniel initiated the divorce process immediately, and I was left alone, facing the ruins of what was once my life. Now, as I write this confession, I reflect on how desire can destroy everything. I lost my husband, my home, and my dignity. If this story made you think, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's remember together that some lines should never be crossed because the price of doing so is too high. What happened to me is a lesson I will never forget, and I hope you won't either.